Hello and welcome to this overview of N-Compass, a platform that makes competency and assessment management structured, transparent, and actionable. Now, typically in large organizations, HR teams face two recurring challenges. How to ensure role definitions are consistent across locations and business units, and how to evaluate employees in a way that's both credible and scalable. Now, N-Compass addresses this by offering a structured platform that integrates organizational design, competency management, assessments, and reporting in one seamless system. In this walkthrough, I'll take you through three stages of this journey. The first is how administrators configure the application. The second is how employees experience assessments. And finally, how HR teams deliver insights leaders can act upon. Let's start with the foundation, which is defining the organization. Now, everything in N-Compass begins with an accurate representation of the organization's structure. HR administrators define grades which anchor job levels and progression. And as I share my screen, this is the part where these structures are defined. They then map departments, divisions, and business units, ensuring this platform mirrors how the enterprise actually operates. So if you look at the different sections in the org management part of the application, it gives a very, very elaborate option to define different entities within the organization and how they all add up to define the organization within the application. Now, on top of this, KRAs and KPIs are created, not just as placeholders, but as measurable outcomes tied to business strategy. Now, the culmination of this step is a position profile which connects grade, department, location, KRAs, and map responsibilities into a single coherent role definition. This, of course, isn't limited to manual entry. N-Compass can integrate with existing HRMS or ERP systems to import organizational hierarchies directly. This integration essentially avoids duplication and ensures consistency with enterprise systems of record. Now, why is this step so critical? It's because once the organizational backbone is defined and accurate, every competency, every assessment, and every report downstream reflects the reality of the business. Now, with the organization mapped, the next step is to build the competency framework. Now, if we switch back to this application, here, HR administrators define competency categories such as technical, behavioral, and functional, for example. These competencies reflect the organization's skill architecture. Each competency is also given a level. For instance, it could be anything that starts from a novice, and it could go up to the organizational steward for a particular competency. Finally, competencies are then marked with criticality to distinguish between mission-critical ones and the ones that are more supportive in nature. So these factors, these three elements, and combine to form the competency dictionary, which becomes the organization's reference point for skills that truly matter. Now, for large enterprises, this step is essential because it enforces consistency. Whether you're evaluating a manager in Dubai or an engineer in Dallas, the definitions are uniform. This provides HR leaders with the confidence that talent assessments are comparable across divisions and locations and not just isolated to one particular unit. Now, after having seen the competency setup, we will now take a look at the assessment setup. Now, once competencies and roles are in place, HR administrators configure the assessments. N-Compass supports a variety of assessments, from multiple choice tests and case studies to in-basket simulations, 360-degree feedback, and even structured fishbone analysis for diagnostic reasoning. Question banks can be created directly in the system or bulk uploaded against each of these assessments and then map precisely to competencies or elements that are being assessed. Assessments are finalized with names, timelines, positions, and weightages across these methods. For administrators, this step transforms assessments from a purely operational activity into a structured workflow. And as you can see in the application, the possibilities to define these assessments are quite exhaustive. Now, once the assessments have been defined, for employees, the experience is next of actually taking the assessments, essentially. Now, this is fairly straightforward, but is also fairly rigorous. Employees log into N-Compass and access their assigned assessments, which may include time-bound tests, scenario-based case studies, or interactive in-basket exercises that simulate real-world decisions. And we have the assessments, as you can see on the application. These are different assessment templates that have been defined in this demo application. In some cases, they also participate in 360-degree feedback. Now, the critical point is that each task is linked directly to the competencies and KRAs defined for the role of the employee that's taking the assessment. Employees aren't evaluated against vague standards. They're assessed against what their job actually entails. And this obviously creates transparency and fairness. And when a system ensures consistency, trust in the outcome grows dramatically. Now, assessments are only as strong as their evaluation. Here, N-Compass allows administrators to onboard internal and external assessors, configure their access, and guide them through the rating process. Progress is monitored, deadlines are enforced, and consistency is maintained. Once ratings are complete, the system consolidates results and produces a sample report for validation. And if you take a look at the application, this is a kind of repository of sample reports that we have in the application, which employees can view either as a part of their own self-assessment or from assessments that have been graded by internal or external assessors. And as you can see, the dictionary of assessments is very, very exhaustive. So the Application essentially provides you not merely with a platform, but a very rich content of assessments and corresponding reports. Now, for HR leaders in large organizations, this turns assessments into a decision-making tool. Instead of debating individual outcomes, leaders get aggregate insights that can drive learning investments, workforce planning, and even succession strategies. So, to close the loop, let's recap. N-Compass starts with defining the organization, then builds competencies on top of this organizational definition, designs structured assessments, guides employees through role-relevant evaluation, and finally delivers validated reports with strategic insights. The value lies in integration, a single system that connects HR operations with leadership decision making and that makes assessments relevant and fair for employees. For large enterprises, it means scalability and credibility. And for HR teams, it means efficiency and standardization. And ultimately, it ensures that the assessment process isn't just administrative, it's a driver of capability building across the organization. Thank you for your attention. We have a series of videos in the library which you can take a look at for a more detailed description of each individual aspect that we covered in this video. Thank you very much.